Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Jeremiah, the 28th chapter, Hananiah's false prophecy. And in this chapter, we see a false prophet, which gives a prime example of what we've read about before, even as to the point as to why the Lord forbade Israel at a point in time during Jeremiah's time from using the phrase like the burden of the Lord, because he had so many false prophets that were actually speaking lies in the name of the Lord. All right, and he wasn't happy with that. One example here being Hananiah. So this is Jeremiah 28:1, and it came to pass the same year, in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, which, once again, this goes to show you that when you read in Jeremiah 27:1, it's there's an error there, right? That 27:1 should say in the reign of Zedekiah, not Jehoiakim, because here it tells you in the same year, continuing from the 27th chapter. When you read it continuing from the 27th chapter, that wouldn't make sense, right? For Zedekiah to be reigning in the same year as Jehoiakim, both in the beginning of their reign. So it says here in the 4th year and in the 5th month. So when you look here at Zedekiah's reign, give or take, he started around 597, right? So about 593, right? 593 or so would be this 4th year and in the 5th month. That Hananiah, the son of Azor, the prophet, which was of Gibeon, spake unto me in the house of the Lord Yahweh, meaning in the temple, in the presence of the priests and of all the people, saying. Now, you notice that these men are referred to as like the prophet, but sometimes it turns out that they're false prophets. And one example, right, that I'll give in our modern day times that can help you sort of get a visual, so you see why they're referred to as prophets and not just false prophets. Like, it doesn't just say here Hananiah, the false prophet, right? So you have certain men today, right, that you'll see referred to as false prophets. But when you go back in time, right, to maybe a decade ago or some years ago, they were known as prophets because at one point they were actually speaking the words of the Lord. And at that point in time, like, it's not like we could see into the future and say like this man is gonna eventually be teaching lies in the name of the Lord, i.e. making him a false prophet, right? So at that point in time, he was looked at as a prophet because he was amongst the company of the prophets teaching the words of the Lord. But now that person is looked at as a false prophet because they're teaching lies, and they might still be using the name of the Lord. So this just to give you an example as to why, even though some of these men that we read about in the book of Jeremiah were false prophets, the label prophets or the prophets, omitting the false, is still used when referring to them. That's just an example of that, right? But it doesn't make them, just because it says they were a prophet, doesn't make them a prophet of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. So this guy, right, Hananiah, he says, right, to Jeremiah, and basically in the presence of everybody, thus, there you go, right? Thus speaketh the Lord Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel, saying, I have broken the yoke of the king of Babylon. The Lord did not say that. But you see now, when the Lord said that they prophesy lies in my name, you see an example of that. Because he is saying, this is what the Lord said. Within 2 full years will I bring again. And when it says that I've broken the yoke of the king of Babylon, it represents what Hananiah was saying was that the Lord has taking the rule of the Babylonians from off of Israel, right, and the nations that they had dominion over. That's what it means by breaking the yoke. Within 2 full years will I bring again into this place all the vessels of the Lord Yahweh's house that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, took away from this place, meaning the vessels that were in the temple, the golden cups, the menorah, like all of those things, and carry them to Babylon. And I will bring again to this place Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, with all the captives of Judah that went into Babylon, saith the Lord Yahweh. See, saith the Lord Yahweh. So they will prefix it that this is what the Lord said, and they would suffix it with saith the Lord. But the whole thing is a lie, because the Lord didn't actually say that. For I will break the yoke of the king of Babylon. Then the prophet Jeremiah said unto the prophet Hananiah, in the presence of the priests, and in the presence of all the people that stood in the house of the Lord Yahweh, even the prophet Jeremiah said, Amen, meaning so let it be. The Lord do so, the Lord Yahweh perform thy words which thou hast prophesied, to bring again the vessels of the Lord's house, and all that is carried away captive from Babylon into this place. So Jeremiah said, yeah, like let it be, let the Lord actually fulfill the bringing again of the vessels and the captives back to this land. All right. However, right, because now you can sense that Jeremiah likely had a suspicion that this guy is off, because of the way that he's prophesying, because it's just like it's contradicting what the Lord had told Jeremiah. But Jeremiah doesn't immediately confront him on that, right? He says it in a roundabout way, right? So he says here, nevertheless, hear thou now this word that I speak in thine ears, and in the ears of all the people. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms of war and of evil and of pestilence. So the prophets that came before us, they spoke, judgments, basically, right? Evils against both the kingdom of Israel and the heathen kingdoms, right? The prophet which prophesieth of peace, when the word of that prophet shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be known that the Lord hath truly sent him. So you can see the pattern of the prophets of old because of the things that they prophesied about. But when somebody comes on the scene calling themselves a prophet and they're prophesying of peace, right, in contradiction to a degree of what the prophets of old had prophesied about, then the only way or the main way to verify that is to see if what they've prophesied actually comes to pass. So in a roundabout way, he was saying what you are saying, Hananiah, is deviating from what the pattern or the message the Lord had given us, starting with the prophets of old. So let's see, hopefully, because it's a beneficial thing for the Lord to return the captives and the vessels back. But let's see if that actually happens, and then we'll know if the Lord has truly sent you or not. Right. So in a roundabout way, that's what Jeremiah was getting at. But the Lord eventually has him be more direct about it. So if we look at this here in the NLT, right, it says, the ancient prophets who preceded you and me spoke against many nations, always warning of war, disaster, and disease. So a prophet who predicts peace must show he is right. Only when his predictions come true can we know that he is really from the Lord. Then Hananiah the prophet took the yoke from off the prophet Jeremiah's neck and break it. And remember, as we went in the 27th chapter, the Lord told Jeremiah to make the yokes, right? And then put it upon his neck. And it was of wood, right? So Hananiah breaks the yoke, and Hananiah spake in the presence of all the people, saying, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, even so will I break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, from off the neck of all nations. So that rule that he has over everybody, the same way I've broken this yoke from Jeremiah's neck, that's how the Lord is going to break the rule of the Babylonians from off of all these nations within the space of 2 full years. And the prophet Jeremiah went his way. So in Jeremiah, he basically didn't escalate it further. He just left. And when he left, right, verse 12, then the word of the Lord Yahweh came on to Jeremiah the prophet. After that, Hananiah the prophet had broken the yoke from off the neck of the prophet Jeremiah. So later on, the word of the Lord came to him after this event, saying, go and tell Hananiah, saying, thus saith the Lord. So now this is really what I'm saying. Thou hast broken the yokes of wood, but thou shalt make for them yokes of iron. So you broke this wooden yoke, which represented like a lighter burden by the, symbolically the rule of the king of Babylon. But in doing so, you have now created or made the rule or the yoke like onto iron, which you can't break iron, right? So you've basically solidified and intensified by doing that, by your actions, the reign or the rule or the dominion that the king of Babylon would have over these nations. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I have put a yoke of iron upon the neck of all these nations, that they may serve Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, and they shall serve him. And I have given him the beasts of the field also. So I set up Nebuchadnezzar, and I gave him this dominion. And all these nations, whether they like it or not, they're going to serve him. Then said the prophet Jeremiah unto Hananiah the prophet, hear now, Hananiah, the Lord Yahweh hath not sent thee, but thou makest this people to trust in a lie. So you're a false prophet. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I will cast thee from off the face of the earth. Meaning you're going to be destroyed. You're going to die. This year thou shalt die, because thou hast taught rebellion against the Lord Yahweh. Because by telling them that in 2 years they were going to be free from the king of Babylon, the Lord is going to bring peace and so on, you're basically reinforcing their wicked ways, because the Lord told Jeremiah to tell them they got to repent and turn back. All right. And then the Lord would have mercy on them. You're telling them, no, they're going to be good regardless, because in 2 years they're going to be all right. And you're speaking falsely in the name of the Lord. So you're teaching rebellion against the Lord. So Hananiah the prophet died the same year in the 7th month. So that was about 2 months. 2 months after the whole situation transpired, Hananiah died. Because in the 7th year is when he died. And in the first verse, it tells you that this happened in this word came on to Jeremiah to go and do this in the 5th month, right? So 5th month, 6th month, 7th month, from the 5th to the 7th, that's 2 months. And that was it for Hananiah. He was out of there. And that brings us to the end of Jeremiah, the 28th chapter. Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.